I don't normally spend any time on these things for a variety of reasons. One is I think you get most of the Trump indictment coverage from the other networks. If you want to pretend that Trump has never done anything wrong, you turn on Fox News. If you want to pretend that Trump is the only villain that America has ever seen, then you turn on MSNBC and you get your choice. Those are your two choices, right? Either Trump is the most villainous human being to ever exist, or he's not a bad guy at all. And he loves you and he cares as he tries to see how much money he can steal from the American people. Those are your two choices, apparently. And I wanted to give the third way, the actual truth of this situation. So here's the New York Times article, which of course is on the Trump is the only supervillain this world has ever known side of things. But of course, this is mainly facts about the indictment. So I don't know how false this article is. I haven't read that much of it, but he was indicted in Georgia. Prosecutors accused Trump of a criminal enterprise to overturn the election. There's a grand jury indictment, and this one seems to have a lot more behind it. I'd say, just talking from just a factual standpoint. I'll get to the bullshit, how much of this is bullshit, and how, the MSNBCs of the world and the CNNs are manipulating this in a second. But this one seems to have a lot more to it and a lot more kind of evidence and proof. Like was it 18 people indicted, and many of them have flipped, are now state witnesses or whatever, witnesses for the prosecution, which they can speak, well to Trump asking Georgia to overturn this thing, he created false electors, like people that he said were the electors, to actually hand the electoral college over to him when that wasn't accurate. Now, for those of you who have not followed my stuff for years and years, you might not know that I have covered election fraud in every way for years. And most of it, a lot of it, let's say, I pointed at the Democrats. They rigged their own primaries. They said, the DNC lawyers said in court, they have the right to rig their own primaries. They have no obligation to give you a legit election. So the Democrats were involved in all kinds of election fraud. Now, the problem is, so are the Republicans. It's just different kinds. The Democrats benefit, and this is just a fact. This is not, I'm not manipulating anything here or trying to push a side. This is just a fact. The Democrats, so far, at least right now in the past 20, 30 years, whatever, benefit when more people vote. Okay? When more people are allowed to vote, then the Democrats are more likely to win. In the general. This is not talking about the primaries. When more people vote in the primaries, Bernie Sanders was more likely to win, but this is talking about the general. Now, of course, there's gerrymandering and stuff, but that doesn't matter as much in a federal election in terms of president. Gerrymandering is done by both sides to try and rig those elections, but again, that doesn't apply to the presidency. And so the biggest election fraud that is done in the federal general presidential election, not talking about other ones, but in the presidential election, the biggest level of fraud is purging black and brown people from the voter rolls. Millions are cut off in one form or another. I've covered various kinds of this purging that has gone on. One was called interstate cross-check, that would claim because someone's named Tim Brown in one state and there's another Tim Brown in another state, then they would wipe them off both states' voter rolls. They'd say, oh, you are voting twice, which is not true. It's just two Tim Browns, which is a very common name, right? And so that was one way they did it. Interstate cross-check, I think, was mostly not operational, ultimately got stopped before this last election, before 2020. But the way they also do it is they'll only have a certain number of voting machines. So you put a million voting machines in the white evangelical areas, the white conservative areas. You put one voting machine in the black areas, and you go, what? We put voting machines? The black people just decided not to vote. What happened? So anyway, all of that is to say that I don't need to relitigate all of that from years ago, and it'll be done in the next election as well. But all that is to say that yes, Biden did win the general presidential election, not counting the primaries, not counting the Democratic rigging that went on there, etc. Biden did win this thing. However, well, not maybe, however, not the right word, but moving beyond just that, these two, as I've said many times, these two guys, Trump and Biden, as do all Republicans and Democrats in the federal level, agree on 80 to 90% of the structural issues of our country. So we're not really we're voting on the little 10% difference. It's ridiculous, and I've gone over that endlessly. All of that said, sure, Trump absolutely tried to steal the Georgia electors from this incredibly corrupt, rigged, awful voting system that we have that is not democratic, that is run by corporations and owned by corporate America. Now, hilariously, in the New York, this is how crappy the New York Times is. They went to how Hillary Clinton feels about this. It's like, why the fuck would you ask a corrupt war criminal, megalomaniacal sociopath, how do you feel about that, Mr. Donald Trump getting indicted? It's like, she is the least legitimate person to ever talk to about anything, but we'll go to her for on this. It's just stupid. But he was indicted for the fourth time. The indictment follows a lengthy investigation, 13 charges, 18 other Trump allies. Here's how it breaks down. 41 counts in the Georgia indictment, 22 counts related to forgery or false documents and statements. So it's tough to say those don't exist. I mean, if they're holding them up. 8 counts related to soliciting or impersonating public officers, 3 counts related to influencing witnesses, 3 counts related to election fraud or defrauding the state, 3 counts related to computer tampering, 1 count related to racketeering, and 1 count related to perjury. But here's another thing, another aspect of this that you won't get from your mainstream media. You're not going to get it from Fox News. You're not going to get it from MSNBC. You're not going to get it from CNN, any of them, New York Times, is that what this really comes down to. What this really comes down to is this is a battle amongst the ruling elite. So they own our system. And really, if we were actually fighting for real change, all of us, so we're talking, let's say 1% of the population, but it's actually smaller than that. But let's say 1% of the population is the ruling elite. The 99% or 99.5% of us who are not the ruling elite should all work together to completely change this system and get rid of the ruling elite. But we don't. Instead, we say, Trump's my guy or Biden's my guy, and I'm going to be on this side or that side, and I'm going to team up with the ruling elite. I'm going to team up with the Bidens, or I'm going to root for the Trumps. But what's happening now is it's a bit of and it's been going since Trump was first elected, but it's a bit of a war between the ruling elite. Some believe that Trump makes a good CEO for America, Inc. The majority believe he does not, and that he actually was dangerous for the American empire, meaning by dangerous, I mean, could harm the American empire. And so many of them are working together to get him out. But that's combined. There's something dovetailing with that, which is they're also not making up these charges. They might be making up some of the other charges he's been prosecuted on, but they're not making up these charges. Trump absolutely was trying to overturn Georgia. There are phone calls. There are taped phone calls of him saying, find me the votes. I don't care where. Just find me the votes. You know, there are documents of him that he signed saying that he declared people electors, meaning those who actually vote in the electoral college. He declared people who were not official electors. He declared them the electors so that they could vote for him. And ultimately that didn't work. It failed, but he tried. And so the question of, did he commit these crimes? Absolutely. Now, the question of, does Biden commit any crimes? Absolutely. Just last week, I was talking about how he actually was at a dinner with a Burisma executive and his son in Georgetown or Washington, D.C., somewhere. And for years, he's claimed he wasn't at that dinner, and now it's clear he was. So his son is getting paid to basically create meetings with his vice president dad and the Ukrainian executive of an oil company. So this is the aspect of this that I wanted to talk about, and that you won't get on any of these mainstream airways, mainstream corporate-owned bullshit, is that both things can be true. Both things can be true. Did Trump commit these crimes, at least the ones in Georgia? Absolutely he did. Fuck yeah. This guy has been a con man and a criminal his entire life. But when you are an executive criminal, when you are the top of the top, the richest of the rich kind of criminal, you don't actually end up in prison for these things. You don't. It's just surprising when he has to pay a fine. But that's what being the ruling elite is. They're not actually held accountable for their crimes. Now, this one, they're pushing a little harder on because they're trying to make sure he can't end up in the presidency again because of that rift in the ruling elite. But both things can be true. He's corrupt. Biden's corrupt. Both Democrats and Republicans are woefully corrupt. They are owned by corporate America. They do whatever is in the benefit of corporate America, no matter how much it destroys our fucking lives at every level. They support things like the opioid epidemic for years and decades and decades. They defend companies that literally give asbestos baby powder to children. They defend big pharma. They defend big oil, big ag, even as the environment collapses around us. That's what this system is. And is Trump also guilty of these crimes? Yeah, of course. Fucking course. So the idea that anyone would sit there and be like, Trump is the bad guy and he's the only bad guy. Or that someone would sit there and say, Trump is a great man and they're trying to stop our great man from being the president. Both of those are just pathetic, childish takes on reality. Both of them. And it's amazing how many in the independent media world are still on one of those sides. I'd say the vast majority of independent media, YouTubers, etc., who are on one of those sides are on the Trump is awesome. And they're just being mean to him because he's such a good guy and he wants to help us. And it's like, dude, how childish is this country going to be? Climate crisis isn't real because I just spit out big oil talking points. Like, it's funny. It's the same people saying that, oh, the rich rule us. The rich rule the country. They hate us. They're manipulating us. They're in the pocket of big pharma and big ag and they don't say big ag, do they? Big oil and big banks. All those people who say that, oh, it's corrupt, it's an elite cabal of assholes, they then spin around, not all of them, but a lot of them, they then spin around and say, but Trump's good. Trump's one of the good ones. He's one of the good billionaire con men. He's one of the good guys. And it's like, dude, did you hear what you just said about how it's the rich are fucking us and it's corrupt and this system is owned by corporate America and they're going to spin around and endorse a CEO who's been a con man his entire life? It's unbelievable that either of those sides are endorsed by anyone. So I hope that cleared up what's going on right now, because of course, if you look at MSNBC or CNN, they're having a fucking frenzy on how, oh my God, they got Trump and he's the only bad one. And finally we're going to stop him and he's getting indicted and all these things. And it's like, yeah, dude, they're all corrupt. Biden's not corrupt. Okay. Biden's been funded his entire career by big banks and big credit cards. And what the fuck do you think the big banks are? Where do you think the $4 trillion during the COVID emergency went to Wall Street? Do you think that ended up in the pockets of those who needed it, who needed help? Fucking no. Ended up in the pockets of the rich.